If you were to ask someone, what's more important, mitzvahs ben adam l'makom or mitzvahs ben adam l'chaver, I think that the knee-jerk reaction of most people would be, of course, it's mitzvahs ben adam l'makom. We're here in this world to serve Hashem, to give to Hashem, to sacrifice for Hashem, right? That's the whole purpose of this world, isn't it? The problem is that the more you learn about mitzvahs ben adam l'chaver, the more you realize that this might very much be the case. And there are many reasons for this, but let's explore two. Number one, every single time you do a mitzvah ben adam l'chavero, you are also doing a mitzvah ben adam l'makom. For the same Rabbi Shalom that commanded us to shake a lulav and esrog also commanded us to have a havas Yisrael and to take care of almanos and yisayimim and do hashavas aveda. But secondly, and perhaps even more importantly, due to the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash and Yeridas Haderis and the end of the Sanhedrin and the loss of the Hilchos Tum and Tara, out of all the 613 mitzvahs, do you know how many we still have left that apply nowadays? Only 281. Only 281 mitzvahs out of 613 apply nowadays. And out of those 281, 133 are bein adam l'makom, and 148 of them are bein adam l'chavera, which means that out of the remaining mitzvahs that we have nowadays, a majority of them are bein adam l'chaveras. Underappreciating mitzvahs bein adam l'chavero is disregarding a majority of the mitzvahs we have left in today's day and age. How could we possibly afford to do that? Now, some people argue and say, well, didn't our greatest gedalim in the past years spend the whole day in a closet just focusing on serving Hashem and Kedusha and Precious? Why shouldn't I do the same? Leave me alone and let me be holy and spiritual like the gedalim of the past. Not only is that a mistake, and it's historically ignorant, it's a dangerous mistake. Moshe Rabbeinu was about as close to Hashem as one can get. The man who literally saw Hashem's face, so to speak. He was the master of bein adam l'makom. And yet, Moshe wasn't Messiach Das from teaching and guiding and loving the Jewish people for a second, for the duration of the entire second half of his life. He would cry on their behalf. He would walk from tent to tent in Klal Yisrael, making sure that each and every person was taken care of and understood the holy Torah he was teaching. Aaron HaKayin, the Kayin Gadol, the only man on earth who could go lefnai v'lefnim, a man who excelled in bein adam l'makom, was the epitome of chesed, of ahava. He would spend his entire days with shalom bayis issues and melding broken relationships. The Medrash says that when Aaron HaKayin died, his coffin was accompanied by 80,000 boys, all named Aaron, all from parents whose marriages were saved due to Aaron. And those children were named Aaron in his honor. 80,000. Yoshua, the great Yoshua, was picked to be the successor of Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Was it because he was the smartest? Was it because he fasted every other day? Was it because his Shemona Esrei lasted hours on end? No. The Medrash, B'mimah Rabbah, Chav Zayin Tesvav says, it was because he was the only one who woke up early to make sure everybody's bench was set up in the Beis Medrash. Rabbeinu Bachya writes that our great leaders throughout history were for the most part all shepherds. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the Shvatim, Moshe, Shmuel, Hanavi, David HaMelech, Rabbi Akiva, all were shepherds. Why? The reason, he says, was because shepherding fosters love, and ahavas Yisrael is the most important trait a leader must have. The entire halachic world follows the opinion of Beis Hillel over Beis Shammai, not because they were smarter, not because they displayed more intellectual prowess. The Gemara in Eruvin, Yud Gimel Beis says, we follow their lead because they were more kind and more patient than Beis Shammai. The Arizal, someone who often is described as being a mystical man, living in a forest, talking to angels, purely focused on closeness to Hashem, right? The last person you would think had any shaykhis to bein adam l'chavero. And yet, he was in fact a pillar of ahavas Yisrael, so much so that he was the one to institute a tefillah in our siddur specifically for Klal Yisrael to daven for excellence in the mitzvah of v'ahavta l'reacha kamecha. Take the Beis HaLevi. Rabbi Yosef Dov Soloveitchik, the father of the Soloveitchik dynasty, a dynasty that at first glance is the very definition of bein adam l'makom and chumras and unflinching dedication to every drop of ink in halacha. Someone completely absorbed in the holy esoteric world of Kudshim. He was not only extremely passionate about Ahavas Yisrael, he was so passionate about it, he wrote what became a sefer on it called, wait for it, Ahavas Yisrael. Or take his son, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, who is the father figure of all yeshivas worldwide, someone who is literally the face of Torah learning, the face of Ben Adam Lamakum. He had a home filled with every needy person in the city. He would care for them all, the mentally insane, the handicaps, the Yisayim, the Almanas. He was such a Baal Chesed that on his tombstone was written, Poi Nikva Rabbeinu Agadol Rav HaChesed. And when they came out with this biography about Reb Chaim, they had to come up with a second edition because people thought all he did all day was chesed. Such are the Talmidei Chachamim in Klal Yisrael. Take Rav Baruch Ber Leibowitz, the unofficial father of Lumdis, or maybe even the father of Lumdis, of learning Torah in tremendous depth. He told his Talmidim before he died that he is betuach, he is certain that the reason he is getting into Gan Eden is because of his Ahavas Yisrael. The Chavetz Chaim, the epitome of Ben Adam Lamakom, the man who wrote the Mishnah Berurah, the way we are supposed to serve Hashem, had such v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, he had it pulsing through every one of his veins. Loving and caring for and unifying the Jewish people was his entire life. It was his whole life's mission. He wrote the Sefer Shmiras HaLashon. He wrote the Sefer Ahavas Chesed, the Sefer Netiva Chesed, the Sefer Be'er Ma'ayim Chayim on Lashon Hara. He wrote the Sefer Kunter Svas Tamim HaMitzvahs Ben Adam, the Chavera having to do with your mouth. He wrote the Sefer Shmiras HaLashon. He also wrote the Sefer Ahavas Yisrael on the dangers of sinas chinam. The list can go on and on. We are here as a nation because of the mercy of Reb Chaim Eiser, and because the unimaginable chesed of Reb Aryeh Levine, and the universal unconditional love of Reb Aaron Leib Steinman, and the sweet care, the Herculean kindness of Reb Matisyahu Solomon. The more you look back and see the great people who made our nation into what it is, the more you can truly appreciate Rabbi Akiva's statement, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ze klal gadol b'Torah." Focusing purely on bein adam l'makom and learning and davening and occasionally writing off a check to some tzedakah organization you've never heard of, but not living a life of chesed, of kindness, of patience, of caring, of love, of menschlichkeit, is misplaced priorities of epic proportions. Walking into a shul and going out of your way to kiss the mezuzah, but letting the door behind you slam into someone's face is misplaced priorities. Not only does such a person miss out on mitzvahs ben adam l'chavero, there's something wrong with your mitzvahs ben adam l'makom. Learning and davening that doesn't make you into a more loving, caring, kind, chesed-filled person has something wrong with that learning and davening. There's something wrong with it. In Chutz La'aretz, on Yom Tiv, and in Eretz Yisrael every day, we say Birchas Kohanim. And the Kohanim get up in front of the entire room and say, Asher Kedishanu b'kedushaso shel Aaron v'tzivanu levarach es amo Yisrael bi'ahava. So the initial translation is that Kohanim are commanded to lovingly bless Klal Yisrael. But another way of translating it is that the children of Aaron HaKohen, the man who stood for Shalom and Ahava, the man who we say, have a Talmidav Shal Aaron HaKohen, Oyev Shalom, V'Reidev Shalom, those children should bless Klal Yisrael with Ahava, with Ahavas Yisrael, with the recognition of the importance to love one another, to go out of our way to care for one another, to go out of our comfort zone for another, to focus on the emotional and physical and spiritual needs of another Yid. That is the bracha the Jewish people need. Now here's one last story. In the year 1703, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, the founder of all Hasidus, was 5 years old. And he was standing by the deathbed of his father, who was moments away from breathing his last breath. And he motioned the Baal Shem Tov to come closer to him. And he began talking. And the last words spoken to the 5-year-old Baal Shem Tov by his father, Rabbi Eliezer, were, Yisraelik, love every single Yid without exception, with the full depth of your heart and with the full fire of your soul. Love them no matter what. And little 5-year-old Yisrael, who would go on to start one of the greatest and most widespread Ahavas Yisrael campaigns in Jewish history, watched his father close his eyes for the last time, and with his father's words ringing in his ears, he left the room, and the rest, as they say, is history. Because Ahavas Yisrael isn't merely nice. It's the bedrock of our nation.